I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm so touched by your work, and I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to connect with you and to tell you more about what I do. So I started the Flourishing Center in 2008, 2 years after doing my degree in positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. The field of positive psychology started in 1998, so still a very new field. Positive psychology is still very new today. It's 2022, but back then it was even newer. And I knew I wanted to make the world a better place. I feel like I, from childhood, was a very strong-willed child who knew my purpose and knew what I was here to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but again, it was here to make the world a better place, and didn't quite know how I was going to do that. And then just thanks to strong sense of spirituality and strong sense of intuition and insight, just have been putting one foot in front of the other, doing my best to try to make positive psychology skills and tools available to people. When I first got exposed to self-help and to spirituality and positive psychology, it was the thought that frequently went through my mind was like, wow, these are actually skills and tools. Like, why don't more people know about this? Why aren't we taught how to deal with our emotions, or how to figure out our purpose in life, or how to understand how to connect more deeply with other people, or how to communicate better, or how to breathe better, and all of these things that have to do with caring for oneself or self-care, which are very present in research studies from positive psychology and the other field that I'm in, which is mind-body medicine. And so I just wanted to make these skills and tools available to people. And so in 2012, we started a certification program in positive psychology, training practitioners who wanted to professionally use this work, because at the time, if people wanted to learn positive psychology, they had the option to either go to a master's degree at a university, or read a whole bunch of journal articles. At the time, there weren't even all that many books published yet about positive psychology. It was still so new. And so we started to run certification programs and take people who wanted to use this work, not just for themselves, but with other people, and started to train the change agents of the world, giving them positive psychology skills and tools, teaching them how to use this for themselves, and then help them understand how they can do this for other people. And since then, we've trained over 1,600 certified positive psychology practitioners in over 60 countries. We've also built out additional training programs and teaching people everything from how to do coaching and professional coaching services, to resilience training, to consulting and using this with organizations. We have a wing of what we do that's focused on schools and teachers, and teaching teachers how to bring this actual skill to the classroom as an actual curriculum, and just running all sorts of different groups, as well as things that we offer for the public. So we run a group where we're teaching positive psychology classes every day, Monday through Friday, 5 times a day. Because the other thing that I've really been passionate about is this idea that happiness and well-being is a skill, and it's a skill that we need to practice. And I am an active mover and exerciser. I used to be a yoga teacher, and I've always thought, well, where is there a place where people can go and practice a skill? If I want to become better at my yoga practice, or I show up to a yoga studio and I practice. If I'm exercising and I want to become faster in my running pace, I have to practice if I want to become better at this. Well, if I want to become a better partner, like, where do I go to practice communication skills? If I want to be happier and work with my mind chatter better, where do I go to practice having a better relationship with my mind? And so with the start of the pandemic, we started to run daily classes because people needed support on a daily basis for themselves and for others on how to take care of themselves and take care of one another. And then we continue to run this program over and over and over again. And now we run this program called Lift, where I've trained other people. And so we make this sort of service available. So we do a lot at the Flourishing Center. I would say I just gave you about half of the different things that we do, but I think it all, for me, it all just comes down to my spiritual purpose in the world is to just empower people with the skills and the knowledge to live life at their best, and know how truly magnificent they each are, to be able to deal with what life hands them, and to be able to live a life of happiness and well-being and flourishing. And so that's what I've been up to for growing. April 2nd will be our 14th year anniversary at the Flourishing Center, which I'm just humbled by and grateful for beyond measure.
Wow. That's impressive. 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Emiliya, if I understand this, your purpose in life is to enable others to live a life of happiness and well-being? Is it that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm here for. Leave the world a little bit better when I leave it compared to when I found it, if I can, as best I can. And the other way that I've learned, I think it's this beautiful and process, and it's supported by the research in positive psychology. Like, how do people figure out their purpose in life? And we use the word uncovering to sort of describe it, rather than people trying to find their purpose or figure out their purpose. It's actually, how do we uncover our purpose? And it's, for me, I've kind of laughed one day when I realized, like, what is the thing that I'm here to do? And I usually say, I live to create experiences for people. I love to teach and I love to share, but really, like, I think the reason I get so excited about these programs and these training courses that I run is, for me, it's more than just education, it's experience curation. So I love taking people on a journey. And my first career started when I was 14. I came to the US from the Ukraine. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine. When I was a child, we immigrated when I was 5. And I was always a very, like, responsible immigrant child in some ways, and sort of like very quick to grow up, very mature for my age. And so I started working at 14, and my first career lasted me for 12 years. And I used to do birthday parties. I used to entertain kids' birthday parties and bar mitzvahs and weddings, and I would dance, and I would dress up as a clown or as a princess. I would twist balloons, paint faces, and basically create experiences for people. And I realized that entertainer, that person who loved to create a party for people, to make people laugh and make people smile and get people talking to each other, or getting adults playing. I love play. I'm all about getting people playing. And so that part of me has just always been present. And so I've kind of learned how to take that energy, that thing that I love to do, that I think I'm naturally skilled at and have been a lot of practice in, and I get to create experiences that take the science of positive psychology and bring the two together. So people come and they learn the skills, but they have an experience and they themselves transform.
Love it. Love it. And if we could use like 2 sentences to talk about what's the most important thing in your work for you, what are you giving to the world?
I mean, I think it's what you said. It's actually breaking down this concept of, what do we mean when we say happiness and well-being? And in fact, I would say that the 2 areas that I focus on the most out of all of the research in positive psychology and mind body medicine, for me, are about resilience and vitality. Like, those 2 are my like favorite areas. Of course, there's so many different things in positive psychology around strengths and gratitude and spirituality and goal setting and visualization. And there's so many different topics within positive psychology. But my main areas is trying to teach people resilience skills. And I like to say that when it comes to resilience, human beings are naturally resilient. And there's 2 ways that you can get to achievement. One is a proactive path, and the other one is a reactive path. And the reactive path is, life gives you things and you become resilient because you have no other choice. And you just have to figure it out and keep your head above water. You just have to do it, right? So it's like, we are resilient. We build the skill of resilience, but we build it reactively. Or we can proactively learn resilience and actually learn, how do I work with my thoughts and with my feelings and with my actions and get ahead of it. So teaching people proactively that resilience is not something that people have. It's something that we do. It's a skill. And so there are actually ways of learning and becoming better at being able to handle the obstacles and the challenges that life handles your way. And for me, teaching people that, teaching them how to be stronger, how to feel more empowered and not get beat up by life's experiences is one of the most important things that I do. And that comes from my own personal life journey of what I've been through, what my family has been through. We've had a lot of obstacles and trauma that we've had to overcome. And so I reactively and proactively learned resilience, and I'm very passionate about giving people that. And the other one is vitality, the idea that just because you're not sick doesn't mean that you're healthy. And there's this quality of vitality, of having energy available to you, that is so important. And we know it when we have it, and we miss it when we don't have it. You know, when you feel sick, when you feel tired, when you feel burnt out, all of that for me is vitality. And it's about actually harnessing life energy and being able to source more energy from life. And so I'm passionate about physical health and well-being and our bodies. And how do we understand vitality, very similar to resilience, as something that we can harness and we can do more of, rather than the way that most people just see it's like, oh, I don't have energy today, or I'm tired, and or even burnout. You know, they get stressed and they get fatigued, and then next thing you know, they're just, I'm burned out, I'm done, as opposed to learning to manage their energy and their well-being and their health as they went along.
Now we are living in such a difficult times. You mentioned that you also run classes because of the global pandemic. And now the war just happened, right? It's just it feels like few days ago, and then it feels like decades ago. Feels like, I don't know why it's still on and when it's gonna end. I mean, and I know it's personal for you, right? Because you have the roots there. So I can imagine that it's really touching you. But what would your advice be from the resilience perspective? What can we do? What could be a quick advice for the people to keep strong and resilient in difficult situation like war?
Yeah, I know some people would ask the question, what is positive psychology the tool that you need during a time of war? You know, we think about positive psychology, about happiness and flourishing and well-being, going north of neutral, when people are they're fighting for their lives, literally, not just fighting for their sovereignty, like fighting for basic life freedom of being alive. They're in the negative, trying to get back to baseline. And so some conversations within positive psychology go, this may not be the time or space for happiness or gratitude or some of these other things. And I think the most applicable research study to the situation, and also a skill that we can remember, is that positive psychology has its roots in other fields within traditional psychology. And the person who created positive psychology was originally a depression expert. He studied depression and came up with a theory that is called learned helplessness. So he came up with this research theory and backed it up through studies, that what happens when people get depressed, they learn that they're helpless. They learn that nothing that they do matters. And so in studying this and saying, well, how do we prevent people from becoming depressed? The question then went, well, if we can learn that we're helpless, can we learn to be optimistic? And then there was the field of learned optimism. And then learned optimism led to the creation of positive psychology, where it said, well, why just stop at being optimistic? Why not also think about high quality connections and all these other things? And so positive psychology sort of has its roots in learned helplessness theory. And then about 5 years ago, 30 years after the original research was conducted on learned helplessness theory, the scientists identified that their studies, while the studies were accurate, their understanding of the studies were inaccurate because of new research that came out in cognitive neuroscience. And the breakthrough was that scientists actually found an area of the brain that is responsible for learned helplessness. meaning they found an area very deep in the primal brain. So we have the core brain, and then we have the outer layer of the brain. And the core brain is the part of our brain that is older, that is tied to other, to our reflexes that we share with other animals like dogs and cats and monkeys and birds and reptiles. So it's this reflexive part of our brain. And they found that this area of the brain, if they stimulated it, they could induce helplessness 100% of the time. Every single time, they could actually make the animal behave helplessly. And if they took the brain region out, the animal could still function. And no matter what, it would still keep trying to get out. It would still keep trying to fight. It would not become helpless. And so they said what we saw in the research studies, that when you induce these very stressful situations, they found about 2/3 of the animals will become helpless, will learn helplessness. And they found about 1/3 of the animals didn't become helpless. So they said, well, those animals didn't learn helplessness. And they said, oh my gosh, we were wrong in our understanding. Their understanding, and this is where it becomes really important for the experience with the war, is that human beings are actually wired with a helplessness mechanism, that when things become so stressful and so overwhelming, and it's one after the other, we don't learn to become helpless. Helplessness is something we experience because of the biological mechanisms. It's almost like the animal's last resort when the stress is so high is to roll over and play dead. Because it's like fight, flight, can't fight, can't flight. You just freeze, you just give up, you just roll over and play dead. And this is really important, because what is learned is not helplessness. What is learned is hopefulness. And what we need in this time is to remember that hope is the most important thing that we have. We have to learn it, we have to save it, we have to preserve it. And we can't give in to feeling helpless. And it makes me teary just saying it, because one of the hardest things is, like, even like you said, it's like, it feels like it's been going on forever and it feels like it just started. It's like, we can't numb out, but we're wired to numb out, especially when we're not in it every single day. So much of the people of Ukraine are saying, hey, let's not forget about this. This is not just news that's here right now. And then we move on to the next hurricane or the next which is hard. We're wired for it. So the question that we need to keep coming back to is, how do we not lose hope? And remember that hope is something that is learned and something that we can build and keep coming back to. And that hope is actually its own practice and its own skill. And so learned hopefulness, the science of learned hopefulness, says that we want to look at this very important word called agency, that I have agency, I have control, I can make change. And so during these little moments, like, we have to just figure out, what can I do, and recognize that it will never be enough, but I'm not going to I'm not going to stop trying. And so I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to keep trying to make an impact. That's what we were doing with the Flourishing Center, and that we were matching donations to a charity 1 for 1. Again, it's like, is it ever enough? The number of people that would write in, whether they were donating $10 or $500 or $1,000, they would still all say the same thing. I wish I could give more. I wish I could do more. And it's just, there comes a point where if you start to think that what you do doesn't matter, you're going to hit the reflexes in your brain that are responsible for learned helplessness. If you can remind yourself that what I do matters, whether it be because of giving hope to another person, giving kindness to another person, not giving up, continuing to stay in the know, and even helping in my own world, even if I can't make an impact in that the other side of the world where this is happening, but I'm going to keep trying to do my best to be of support to others. That is what makes me maintain my sense of hopefulness.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, because honestly, it never feels enough.
Yep.
And thank you for the lesson. And I'm conscious of time. You have to run. So thank you so much for the conversation. I hope we can have it longer one day.
Yes,
or follow up over email. So thank you so much, Emiliya.
It's my pleasure. It's so great to be with you, Maria. Thank you for what you do in the world. And let's all keep holding on to hope and keep building it and blow on it like fire. May it continue to spread.
Yes. Thank you so much.